Have you fallen into an open manhole recently? Do you find yourself in the company of strangers? Well, then you might very well be in the feature Underground. As is so often the case, my name is Hunter Lanier, and I'm here today with another review of an upcoming movie. This time it is Her Private Hell, written and directed by Nicolas Winding Refn. If you can tell, I am speaking softly now because it is 11 p.m. and there are people sleeping in my home. I have just gotten back from the movie theater. It is very unusual that I do a review in this kind of way. I do this because I am going somewhere tomorrow and will not have time to do my normal schedule of writing out my thoughts, formatting them, putting them in a nice little package, filming the video, then editing the video. I don't have time to write down my thoughts. So this is me straight home from the movie theater, just spewing my raw ideas into this camera and this very expensive microphone. First thing I want to touch on is that Nicolas Winding Refn was at my screening. He came out after the movie was over and he talked about the movie. He did a short Q&A. And I bring this up first because I think this was a very smart strategic move from Neon. When the movie was over, there were certainly things that I liked about the movie. But one big thing that I had an issue with was that I really had no clue what was happening. There are certain cases where that could not be as big of an issue, but there's a lot of melodrama in this movie. There's a lot of characters, things that are supposed to be important happening, that if you have no clue what's happening, these moments don't really have much of an effect. So anyway, Nicolas Winding Refn comes out, basically explains the movie, explains his intention behind the movie. And as he was doing that, I was thinking, oh, well, that makes sense. That makes sense. Oh yeah, that makes sense. So all of a sudden the movie starts to crystallize. And I ended up walking out of the theater liking the movie a little more than I would have if he had not been there and just explained it to me. Now, I realize that's not the ideal scenario for a movie, that you have to have someone come out and explain it to you after it's over. But that being the case, that was my experience. And in his Q&A, I'm not going to get into him explaining the movie because that would get into spoilers. But if you've seen the movie or you don't care and you come into the comments, I'll tell you some of the things that he told us. But through his Q&A, I will say that there were some revelations and then there were some affirmations of things that I had suspected. One of the more interesting revelations, and maybe people already know this, is that he's colorblind. Now, one of my criticisms of this movie was going to be that so much of this movie is just blue and red. It's cool for a little while. It's a cool stylistic thing for a little while. But this whole, a lot of this movie, I want to say 88% of this movie is blue neon and red neon lights, flashing. Now, used in moderation, it's a cool stylistic touch. But it's used so much in this movie that it becomes very monotone. And, this movie in general, I think, has an issue where it's very atonal. There's not a lot of emotional movement or intellectual movement in this movie. It's just kind of flat. So much so that as I was watching the movie, I was starting to think of Refn as kind of almost like an Andy Warhol type of figure. And I was thinking of those, if you've ever seen those screen tests that Andy Warhol did, where there's like Bob Dylan and Lou Reed, and they're just kind of sitting in front of the camera. And you can tell Warhol is just so fascinated with their faces. And I get that impression from Refn too, where he doesn't strike. This is an affirmation of something I had suspected, and he said so in the Q&A. Is that I got the feeling watching the movie that he really doesn't like writing. He likes visuals. He likes people's faces. He likes lighting. He likes costumes. And so I was thinking of those Andy Warhol screen tests, and so much of this movie is just, Sophie Thatcher's face. And she has a very interesting face. And it's Charles Melton's face with his very chiseled, cheekbones and jowls. There's a lot of just slow moving shots, lingering shots on people's faces. That's what he likes. I do also find some aesthetic value in that. I don't need necessarily a movie to be a lot of paragraphs of soliloquies and philosophy and very heavily written movies. I like that too, but I'm okay with a movie that just wants to be, pop art brought to life. So the movie has some value there. I don't think it's quite enough to sustain this movie. I don't have a great desire to rewatch this movie. But as I was watching the movie and I was kind of starving for thematic material, I was okay looking at all these pretty faces in these sorts of varying ways, although a lot of it is blue and red. I will say there's one kind of funny moment where the movie cuts and they're about to go into a nightclub. And for the first time ever, the movie just the color grading looks normal. It just looks like a normal shot. There's no crazy colors. And then they walk into a nightclub. And of course I'm like, oh, it's a nightclub. It's going to turn back into how it's been looking the whole time. And sure enough, it does. But in that scene, there's actually kind of a cool thing where the strobing lights from the nightclub, which we've seen a million times in movies, but this time it's casting a shadow over different parts of Sophie Thatcher's face in these different kind of rhythmic ways. So that was kind of cool. I was also surprised, and this is a name that got brought up in the after film discussion, how much this movie reminded me of the Douglas Sirk melodramas. Part of that is the lush color. There's a lot of sweeping shots. And there's a very string heavy score that just feels so soap opera-ish. Now I'm going to return. This is an example of me not having written out my thoughts. So I'm going to keep everything's not going to be in one nice package. But going back to what I was talking about, this movie being very atonal. There are several moments where the movie starts to kind of flirt with opening up. The Charles Melton part of this movie is very different than the Sophie Thatcher part of the movie. And you keep thinking the movie is going to start kind of unfolding and blossoming into something. And it never really does. It never pulls the trigger. It really holds the movie back, I think. Now, Refn kind of explains this in the after film discussion, where he says he was basically trying to make a movie that had everything in it. And he also brought up scrolling. He brought up that he would, when he first came to America when he was 8, he was fascinated by the TV and how you changed it. He would just stand there and change the channel, and each channel would be a different, it would evoke a different emotion from him. And then he was thinking about how that relates now to scrolling, which is a more extreme version of that. This movie does, I say it's atonal, but it's a melodrama, then it's very campy, then it's an action movie. So yes, even though the movie plays in all these different genres, I would still say it's very one note. It's just one note played on different instruments. This movie, in addition to Douglas Sirk, it also had me thinking of Valley of the Dolls. With the 3 women are at the center of this movie. It's about filmmaking. There's a lot of that 60s aesthetics in this movie, and the movie, when it wants to be, it is very funny. It's confounding because so much of this movie seems to struggle to say what it wants to say, but then when it wants to be funny, it's funny with great ease. You can have some fun with this movie. Yes, people are going to find it extremely pretentious because of how inaccessible it is. But there is some fun to be had here. Well, those are all my thoughts on Her Private Hell. Now's the time for you to let me know your thoughts on my thoughts. This is going to be a short episode. I have to edit this and get out of town quickly. So next review I have coming up, I think I'll be seeing the new Spider-Man movie on Monday. So I guess I'll have a review of that, in theory. Until then, I leave you with the always comforting truth that every day underground is a good day.